Alright, so Kino's Journey Episode 3 finally dropped on Crunchyroll, and I gotta say, it was another good episode of Kino's Journey, the 2017 adaptation of Kino's Journey. And as I told you guys this before, this is kind of like a reboot of sorts when it comes to Kino's Journey, but at the same time, like a sequel of sorts as well, because we're also getting new stories from the series, as well as old ones from the original. Now, when it comes down to this episode that we saw in today's adaptation of Kino's Journey, the episode is titled The Bothersome Country. Now, this was an entirely new tale in the Kino's Journey series, and I gotta say, it was quite an interesting one. In this episode of Kino's Journey, we see Kino come across yet again another country that seems to be constantly on the move, and necessarily, it's an encapsulated country, like they are living in a dome. And when it comes to this country, we see how selfish this country is. I mean, honestly, when it comes down to the episode title, while it's titled The Bothersome Country, at the same time, you can probably say that this episode could be titled The Selfish Country as well. But we'll get to, why I think that, in a bit. But first, let's talk about, this country. We see when Kino enters this country that she is planning to stay here for at least 5 to 10 days. Now, for people who have originally seen the original Kino's Journey, this may become, quite a surprise when Kino actually says that she is willing to stay about 5 to 10 days within this country. Because the thing with Kino is that throughout the series, from the original, there is something known as the 3-day rule. And Kino really only visits countries for a period of 3 days. Once the 3 days are up, she is technically up and at 'em and moves to a different country. Now, I believe in this episode, she didn't really stay that long as from what she stated beforehand, so I'm assuming that maybe she was only there for 3 days, maybe even less. But yeah, just for future reference, there is something called the 3-day rule within Kino's Journey. But anyways, regarding the country that Kino comes across, that seems as though these people are living inside an actual dome. Pretty much, we have it to where, it looks like a normal country, has its citizens, when it comes down to the scenery, it looks very, very nice. People can have sunlight, they can bathe in the sun, stuff like that. So, honestly, when it comes down to inside the dome, it is, kind of like a regular country. People seem alright. However, the thing about this country that makes it stand out in terms of its, quote-unquote annoyance, is that this country doesn't really seem to care much about the destruction of human nature. You see, when it comes to this country, they are constantly on the move, which is causing havoc and destruction in Mother Nature's wake, to the point where it's leading destruction, all over the place. Not only for the environment, but also for neighboring countries as well. And we see in this episode, this country is willing to plow through other neighboring countries by force, necessarily. It's not that they want to kill anybody in this process, but if something like this does end up coming about into which, the other neighboring country does not comply to their demands, then honestly, they have no choice. They, will end up killing people in the process. They'll simply just ram them over without a second thought, because all they care about is from moving from point A to point B, which makes them a bothersome country. What I found very cool within this episode was its ending, and when Kino finally left, the dome country, or was about to leave the country, I should say, because when she is actually talking with the, one of the political figures of the country who we saw in the beginning of this episode, who kind of like handles negotiations, proceedings, and also welcomes travelers and stuff like that. He kind of is like the head policeman of the country. That's what I should say. Now, when it comes down to the dialogue exchange between Kino and him as Kino was about to leave, I love the dialogue where he stated that if you really think about it, just existing is always bothersome. Every country is bothersome to the other just by simply existing. And when it comes down to that statement, he is not exactly wrong. That is a very, very truthful statement. And not only that, but when Kino does finally leave, we have Hermes. You know, the dialogue between Hermes and Kino is what I find to be, you know, probably the most entertaining moments out of the series of Kino's journey. But anyways, when it comes down to the dialogue that was exchanged between those two, the country that the dome-shaped country ended up coming across was a country that had a border of sorts. So that way, you know, other neighboring countries could not come through into their lands, unless if they came up with some negotiations or something like that. However, even if that is the case, we find out that Hermes states to Kino at the very end of this episode that when it comes down to the obstructing country that they came across, it purposely sealed off the plains or borders from the other neighboring countries due to the sole fact that they can extort money, food, and other supplies from, you know, the countries that come to visit them. In other words, take by force and simply keep those things for themselves. So this makes this country actually look at the same time just as selfish as the other country. And it just shows you how far humans are willing to go just for the sake of survival. And when it comes down to it, and it just shows you how far humans are willing to go in order to survive, even if that means lacking empathy for the environment or other humans when it comes down to their own survival. So when it comes down to it all, we are all selfish. So when it comes down to it, I mean, simply put, that was one of the coolest scenes that I have seen when it comes down to Kino's journey. And thinking about it now, it really does make you think in that sort of perspective as to, you know, I guess we are all, you know, selfish. We are all bothersome to one another, and we will go the extra mile just to simply get to what we want, get to our desires. We will abandon anything if it comes down to it just for the sake of survival. And it really does get you thinking about that stuff, and it really brings up, you know, the moral question as to, you know, which country is morally right or not, or is it that we're all not morally right, you know? So I really liked this episode of Kino's journey. It was just very, very interesting. I love the deep meaning behind it. Like I said before, Kino's journey is not necessarily a dark series. I mean, it does have its dark moments, but all in all, it's simply just a series to get you thinking about what exactly is morally right, what is morally wrong, the dark side of human nature, as well as other philosophical and psychological topics that are brought up in the series as well. And that is what I love about Kino's journey. Just some of the meanings and complex, you know, topics that are brought about in the series. That's what I really love. So when it comes down to this overall episode, as I said before, I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys did as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What did you guys think about the episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Just let me know your overall thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and hit that red subscribe button down below if you want to see more anime and manga related content from me on the channel. And with that said, everyone, I'm Professor Anime, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.